counting down the top Black video game characters of all time, one for each day in Black History Month. The reason I did this best Black character list was really just to find a more positive way to celebrate Black History Month, and I wanted to make it more of a celebration rather than doom and gloom and the normal stuff that we get where it's constant reminders of us being farm equipment and being locked up in chains and being sold like property. Yes, that kind of stuff is important, but this just feels like a version of Black History Month that people of all races can come together and celebrate. Actually celebrate, not just fill it with white guilt or whatever. Considering some of the gloomy places that we came from, it's important to recognize where we are now. We can use those two things to shape where we go in the future. And sometimes that also means in the form of entertainment. This is a lot of work, but this has been one of the best times of my creative life. I've enjoyed the feedback and conversations quite a bit. The characters' rankings were determined by a multitude of factors. It was a weighted score based on the character's general badassery and character design, the character's development over the course of their story, their screen time and their relevance to the overarching plot, and, arguably most importantly, their representation for Black culture and how many stereotypes they were draped in. I'll tell you now, nobody got a perfect score. If they're on the list, that means they're a good video game character. If they're not on the list, they're probably an honorable mention. I'm only here to celebrate the characters. Also, while we're talking about this, I suppose I should mention it, characters who do not originate from a video game are not on the list. So people like Storm, Miles Morales aren't necessarily going to be here. Two, if they aren't actually Black, they're not going to be on the list. People like Piccolo or Knuckles. Knuckles is red. Three, if they aren't human, animals or a robot, or like they're 100% a robot, they're going to be eliminated as well, because there's just so many characters that could be coded that way or perceived that way. Just to clear that up. Ranking in at number 28, Coach from Left 4 Dead 2, The Solace. This jolly dude is a fun start to this series. I always picked Coach, to the point where I would get in arguments with my friends if they tried to take him first. Even in a zombie apocalypse, he professes his love of cheeseburgers. I too love cheeseburgers, Coach. He's a leader in the group, giving a level-headed perspective and tries to motivate during the rough patches. It's also pretty great that he's built like a normal dude too. The Dread, there's really no character development for him. He's given a little bit of a backstory via exposition dump, but that's pretty much it. It doesn't really matter though, that's not what this game is about. Coach is a great character and well deserves this spot.
Every lady's crazy when her daddy's not around. Na, 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 na.
Ranking in at number 27, Jax, aka Major Jackson Briggs from the Mortal Kombat series. The Solace, he's a soldier with bionic metal arms. Really doesn't get much more badass than that. This man found himself involved in an interdimensional fighting tournament for the fate of Earth. He's been in the series since Mortal Kombat 2 in 1993. I was a Jax main. I also used to get my ass beat in Mortal Kombat by my cousins. The two may have been related. He recently got a decent amount of exposition and character development in Mortal Kombat 11. I liked him because he was the first substantial Black video game character I ever came across that wasn't just a Mike Tyson insert like Punch-Out or Balrog from Street Fighter. When you think of Black video game characters, he's one of the first characters that comes to mind for many gamers, even if you don't play Mortal Kombat. The Dread, and you're going to hear this a lot in this series, but Black video game characters tend to get put into this trope of being hyper-violent men that either punch people or shoot guns. Jax fits the bill. Also, he's not a lead character, just a mainstay. Not the best representative of us, but he's still iconic. Haters will say that was edited, but it wasn't. Ranking in at number 26, Lucio from Overwatch, The Solace. Alright, yes, I'm aware that Lucio is actually Brazilian, but Black Brazilians exist. So before you come into the comments trying to correct me, please understand that slave trading happened in more than one place. This is what happens when you don't keep the receipts on the farm equipment. You tend to forget where you got it from. Lucio's iconic, and in the lore of Overwatch, he's a renowned DJ and a revolutionary against the Vishkar Corporation. The tech that he uses for his weapon and to skate all over the place are stolen, but it's actually his father's work that Vishkar stole from him in the first place. He's primarily used as a healer, and he's one of the original characters of the Overwatch cast, rather than being a diversity checkbox that they added in afterthought. The Dread, as far as plot goes, he's not a well-developed character, as is the case for most characters in games like this. Still, he's a memorable character with a great design. This goes out to all the Lucio mains. I said that like I was a Lucio main. I was a Mei main, so I'm a fraud. Ranking in at number 25.
Who are you?
Anthony Hicks, sir. Galactic Federation Platoon 7.
Anthony Higgs from Metroid Other M. The Solace, this guy is tied to what many fans of the Metroid franchise consider to be the worst of the entire series, but he is one of the things that they tend to like about this game. He saved Samus a number of times, and he's even done the whole, jump into a pit to sacrifice himself, and even though he does survive, so net zero. He's charismatic, and he's laid back while also being an effective soldier. It's safe to say that he understands better than anybody just how incredibly powerful Samus actually is. The Dread, his flaws aren't necessarily his own. Some of Samus's silliest weak moments feel like they're written just to give him a chance to shine. Also, I'm not too particularly fond of his condescension and calling Samus princess either, even if she doesn't seem to mind it. Also, I feel like I don't even need to say it anymore at this point, but I will. Another black man, another gun. Ranking in at number 24, Lenny, aka Leonard Summers from Red Dead Redemption 2. Lenny is the son of former slaves and had a pretty good upbringing. He was able to read and write in a time where this is not so common for black people. All was well until the day his father was killed and he felt the urge to go and avenge him, thus becoming an outlaw. He's a good influence on Arthur and a good friend, getting wasted with him in the infamous saloon scene.
Good friend to me, Arthur.
And he even goes on to teach Arthur about things like white privilege. The Dread, I would have liked to see more of him. His arc wraps about halfway through that game. He's a central character with a powerful and memorable wrap to his arc.
Emotional damage!
But as far as representation goes, Murderous Outlaw isn't exactly MLK. He also mostly matters as an influence to Arthur's arc rather than being his own character.
All we had to do was follow the damn train, CJ.
Ranking in at number 23, Big Smoke from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. The Solace, Big Smoke is an interesting character.
I'll have 2 number 9s, a number 9 large, a number 6 with extra dip, a number 7.
He's a very major part of the plot of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and ends up being one of the game's biggest twists. The game does a good job of subverting your expectations, making him one of the most vile pieces of shit ever, which actually makes him a good character. Good characters are written with flaws, and he is flawed.
Man, it's every motherfucker for himself.
He's got a range of emotions, and he's pretty funny, and a memorable character arc for sure. The Dread, like I said before, he's pretty awful. That kind of goes for anybody that wears a fedora. It's not the betrayal that took points away though, it's the corny dialogue, especially during his final scene.
Everyone gonna remember my name, Big Smoke. Oh.
And honestly his representation of black folks. Also, our old friend Angry Black Man with Gun trope makes its return to this list in Big Smoke, but it'll be in there plenty more times, don't worry.
Shit, that's gonna be a hell of a story to tell when we pass in the blunt.
Ranking in at number 22, Raubin Audine from Square Enix's critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV. The Solace. This bold and proud warrior is a top-tier black character. Forging a new life in Ul'dah after the fall of his homeland, this fierce warrior goes through a lot, from being a gladiator to losing an arm to having a questionable relationship with a potato queen. By the way, I don't really understand how that works. Some things we don't need to think about. This easily overlooked and well-written character deserves his spot on the list. He displays a decent range of emotions and is a central character for much of the game as well as the expansions. The Dread, unfortunately, as cool as he is, his relevance to the overarching story diminishes by the later expansions, plummeting his screen time ratio. Also, with so many characters, it's difficult to keep him as centralized as many of the characters on this list. Still, he's beloved by the community and deserves all the praise. Ranking in at number 21, Rude from Final Fantasy VII. The Solace. Alright, hold on. It was hotly debated if Rude is even black. I put a poll up on Twitter, and it was decided that he's probably black. My wife thinks he looks like Pitbull. A friend of mine said he kind of looks like Andrew Tate. Whatever, man, I'm claiming this dude, he's black. Anyway, he's a prominent member of the Turks and one of the coolest characters in the games. He's loyal to Reno and the rest of his team, and while he's largely an antagonist to Cloud and company, he's actually one of the longest running characters in the Final Fantasy VII saga. He also has a huge crush on Tifa, but I mean, come on, who doesn't? Fun fact, he never actually attacks Tifa in the original Final Fantasy VII. He always attacks your party members unless they're down. In the remake, he actually goes so far as to swerve the helicopter away from Tifa as she's running up the stairs to save her from Reno's gunfire. He also has moral dilemmas over dropping the plate over Sector 7. Rude dropping the plate was actually a change from the original where Reno did it. Rude also saves Reno in this sequence too. It seems they've attempted to flesh Rude out a little bit more in the new installments. He's had a lot of roles over time, including being a deuteragonist at one point. The Dread, the only thing that keeps Rude from being higher in the list is he's really kinda Rufus's lapdog. While he does have his moments, his relevance to the overarching plot always feels minimal. Despite his flaws, Rude has managed to stand out amongst the many stars of the Final Fantasy VII cast. Ranking in at number 20. From the Bayonetta series, the Solace, the Fallen Angel, the Dangerous Demon, the Badass of Badassery. Seriously, this dude is probably the coolest fucking guy in this list. He's a weapons dealer, a bartender, and a proprietor of the Gates of Hell in the Bayonetta series. He's the guy that makes most of Bayonetta's weapons, including her infamous guns Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme. It's a Simon and Garfunkel reference, by the way. Because he's immortal and incredibly powerful, Rodin has a detached demeanor about the world and what happens to it. His main interest is peaked to watch and learn how his weapons perform in Bayonetta's hands and her legs. Not to mention is an unlockable super boss at the end of the games, and I love that shit. Seriously, I think secret bosses are probably in a top 5 convention in gaming that I'm a sucker for. The Dread, he runs a bar and sells guns. The trope returns, again. But I mean, perspective is a thing. He was once an angel, and that cool factor goes a long way. Also, he's always a supporting character, going out of his way to stay out of the main events as much as possible, despite Bayo being his golden goose. Always felt kinda silly to me. Ranking in at number 19, Sylens from the Horizon series, the Solace. He's intelligent, knowledgeable, and despite some negative qualities, there's character growth towards Aloy, showing care and recognizing his own mistakes. He's insensitive, calculated, and secretive. He's the driving force behind the plot of the first game where he serves as the deuteragonist, and his perspective and character is incredibly unique. His thirst for knowledge about the old world is so strong it's actually to his detriment. He's a good but flawed character put in place to almost mirror the player's want to uncover the mysteries of the old world. The Dread, his overly mysterious aloofness and constant "I'm smarter than you" shtick gets a little bit old. Another flaw that's not necessarily his own is how he's constantly playing Puppet Master, and it feels like they write Aloy as too dumb to see it, which makes you mad at him due to the writing. Ultimately though, he's a great character and serves as an amazing counter to Aloy. Ranking in at number 18, David Anderson of the Mass Effect series. The Solace, Anderson is legitimately one of the highest points of the entire franchise. He's consistently great throughout the entire franchise, though you could attribute much of that to the incredible talent of Keith David. He's not your typical bureaucrat. He's sharp and hard-hitting. He's an in-game father figure and puts everything he has on the line to help you succeed, whether it be his ship, or his career, or even his life. During Shepard's low points, he's one of the few characters that you know absolutely has your best interest at heart. Anderson is loved by the community and deserves his spot on the list. The Dread? There really isn't much bad about him. He's a great supporting character and drives much of the plot, but some of the fans of the series find him rather uninteresting since he's not in the action nearly as much as the other characters of the game. Additionally, his role isn't exactly the most unique, it's just uniquely portrayed, if that makes sense. All in all, he's an amazing character and the dad we all deserve. Ranking in at number 17, Ikora Rey from the Destiny series, the Solace. We're this far in and we finally have our first female character. There's more ahead too, but the women are fewer between. Ikora is the Warlock Vanguard, a position she's had for around a century. Let me tell you, she looks damn good for her age. She's one of the strongest Voidwalkers alive, which I appreciate since I was a Warlock main. And she has repeatedly shown her strength and combat prowess in the Crucible and various battlefields. She's insanely powerful, and one of the most powerful characters in the game, in fact. She represented a good balance between Cayde and Zavala. Rest in peace, Cayde. There's a ton of lore on her, and she's remained close to the center of the overarching plot between Destiny 1 and 2. For a while, anyway. I actually almost forgot to put her on the list, which would have been a fucking crime. The Dread? While she's an important character character in the base games and some of the earlier expansions, her relevance is starting to fade in the newer expansions. I do wish they gave her a little bit more of a passive side instead of just fury and vengeance though. Would have made her a little bit more three-dimensional. Also, while she's a great character and rather high up on the list, she's a supporting character, not playable and as central as some of the others ahead. Let me be very clear though. Ranking 17 out of the hundreds of black characters there are is not a bad placement.
Charles, will you ride with me? Always.
Ranking in at number 16, Charles Smith from Red Dead Redemption 2, the Solace. He's basically Red Dead Redemption's Daryl Dixon, except even more honorable. He's one of the most important characters and develops on his own, independent of Arthur. He's stoic and intelligent, but will still kill when he has to or a line is crossed, like the Bison situation.
We shot them bison, we'll shoot you too if you don't get.
What business is it of yours? What? Wait.
It's that business of mine!
Things would have gone better for everyone if Dutch had made him his right-hand man instead of Micah, but then we really wouldn't have a plot. Just my 2 cents. He's incredibly loyal, and somehow having him with you on a mission made you, the player, feel safe knowing you had someone level-headed at your side. I'd have loved to see him get his own DLC segment in the game, or maybe star in the next one. The Dread? Like I said, I'd have liked to see him star in his own segment of the game. He's an incredible supporting character and a rock that Arthur can lean on. But when we're ranking him against some of the best characters to ever grace a video game, screen time and player control is a huge factor. There's really nothing wrong with him, he's just not as central as impactful as some of the others on this list.
Charles, have I ever lied to you?
I hardly know you.
Exactly.
Ranking in at number 15, Eli Vance from the Half-Life series, the Solace. Okay, I know those of you who know Eli were probably wondering why he's not a little bit higher. We'll get there. He's a central character in Half-Life 2 and is heavily involved in the driving force behind the plot of the game. He's plagued by the mistake that he made in his youth by not preparing for unforeseen consequences and has spent much of his time taking on the responsibility of trying to clean up what he considers to be his mess. He cares deeply for those around him, especially his daughter Alex. He had a powerful climax to his story in Half-Life 2 and is one of the best black video game characters of all time. The Dread, while Eli Vance is amazing, his death being undone and Half-Life Alex cheapens his story a little bit. His death had an emotional impact, it meant something, and to have it undone with time travel shenanigans does a disservice to the character. Also, there's not a lot wrong with him, it's just now we're starting to stack up against characters who are playable or are the main characters in their story. Also, his design, I mean, he's an old man. Let's be real. Still though, nothing but love for Eli.
Oh, I know what the ladies like.
Ranking in at number 14, Sergeant Johnson, also known as Avery Johnson from the Halo series, the Solace. Y'all knew he was going to be on this list. Sergeant Johnson is a tough, badass Marine full of one-liners. He's a widely known support character for Master Chief, having most of his time spent in the original Halo trilogy, when the games were still good. We have nothing but love for Avery in this house. This is my favorite moment.
Any idea what it means?
Dear humanity, we regret being alien bastards. We regret coming to Earth. And we most definitely regret the Corps just blew up our raggedy-ass fleet. Hoorah!
This dude definitely earns his spot as one of the most iconic and best black characters of all time. The Dread, unfortunately, the angry black man with gun trope comes back again.
Say what?
But it fits in the setting at least. And while he is a great supporting character, he does not get to shine that long in the overarching series comparatively. Still a great character, worth his spot on the list, and it's not even a question.
Welcome to Africa.
Ranking in at number 13, Sheva Alomar from Resident Evil 5. Black women are criminally underrepresented in video games. Sheva's inclusion is historic. Not only did they make this character black, but it was one of the first Resident Evil games to use Hollywood-level mocap in a Hollywood studio. She's one of the first female playable black characters in a video game that is a central character, let alone a main protagonist. And then they make her pretty great. I mean, she's fucking hot, let's be real. But beyond that, she's extremely smart, she speaks multiple languages, and she's incredibly strong. She's good with a gun and an incredibly flexible and versatile fighter. The amount of trauma that she experienced in her backstory would cripple most people. She's actually turned that into strength. Also, she's a baddie. I know I mentioned that already, but it bears repeating. Capcom did their thing with her. The Dread, she's kind of a one and done. She's referenced in Resident Evil 6, but that's pretty much it. Outside of her involvement in Resident Evil 5, they completely axed her. Also, she really only ever mattered as Chris's partner, and she doesn't really develop on her own comparatively. It's such a shame, really. I'd like to see her run a spin-off or be further included in one of the sequels or new games that comes out down the road. I think most of the fandom feels the same way.
What are you up to? Hey!
Ranking in at number 12, Saz Katzroy from Final Fantasy XIII, the Solace. Saz is a wonderful addition to this list. As a character, he's in a strange spot, honestly. Final Fantasy XIII is a very divisive game, but Saz is one of the brighter spots and is pretty universally praised. It's just too bad that he's paired with what most fans consider to be the worst character to ever grace the series. He's got a solid motivation, which is finding and saving his son. This gets him major points in the representation category, by the way. Despite being the oldest in his group, he's got a youthful and lively disposition. He's a good-hearted man and is selflessly devoted to his son, Dodge. He's kinda silly, level-headed, mature, keeping his emotions in check. He's extremely unique for a Final Fantasy character and definitely breaks the mold for the typical character they write. Also, I have to mention the chocobo chick he keeps in his afro. It's a nice touch. Saz is actually one of the only Final Fantasy characters I have ever cosplayed as. I have worn this guy in my hair before. The Dread, as good of a character as Saz is, he's almost entirely relegated to just being a father in crisis. In Final Fantasy XIII 1, everything was about finding and saving Dodge. In 13.3, they recycled the exact same thing. But in 13.2, he was with his son and he was barely written into the game. I'd have liked to see more of him without being fueled by trauma, I guess. Also, I mean, his design's a little goofy. He's a blaxploitation character ripped right out of the 70s. Oh yeah, and while he's not angry, our trope of black man plus gun comes right back again. They literally have him holding them sideways in goofy poses. And before you say, well, everybody has guns, stop it. Snow punches. Fang uses a staff. Hope uses a boomerang. Vanille uses a rod. Lightning uses a gun blade, which is fucking cool, by the way. It's way better than Squall's. Look, I'm not anti-pew-pew at all. I'm not saying that we can't have them. I'm just highlighting that even in fantasy situations where not everybody has a gun, black characters are still being given guns. It's a pattern.
Captain Kenway, you look like a bowl of plum duff.
Ranking in at number 11, Adewale from Assassin's Creed. The Solace, not only is he a prominent character in Assassin's Creed Black Flag, but he also gets his own DLC segment where he runs around freeing slaves and killing slave owners. Come on, man. He goes from slave to pirate quartermaster to master assassin. He's from Trinidad, he's multilingual, he has a great design and the standard Assassin's Creed toolkit, which is several insanely cool killing skills and moves. Not only that, but he freed himself and hundreds of other slaves. He's serious, hardened, and a voice of reason when his captain leans to the selfish side, and an all-around good right-hand man. He's very passionately against slavery, as is expected for his character, and he often got really mad at those who sympathized with slave owners and advised crew not to shoot at the boats if they potentially had slaves below deck. Sometimes to him and his crew's detriment, but still, it's pretty great. The Dread? This man is far from the MLK type. I get that he's angry and has a right to be, but man is he a murderous monster. So while he has some stereotypes, they do fit. One particularly jarring scene was killing the main antagonist of Freedom's Cry in a slow and painful way because he regarded slaves as animals. But I mean, come on, man. Despite having an appearance in multiple games, his screen time ratio drops quite a bit because there's just so many titles. And his story and character development was good, but his DLC means very little to the overarching story of Assassin's Creed.
Gordon! I was so worried.
Ranking in at number 10, Alex Vance from the Half-Life series, The Solace. She's the main protagonist in Half-Life Alyx. She's the deuteragonist in Half-Life 2. She's also got a great design. She's combat-oriented and has a strong relationship with both her father and Gordon Freeman. She's a strong, independent woman and a prominent figure in the resistance campaign against the rule of the Combine. She's a skilled hacker, able to operate and manipulate Combine-based objects, and she's super handy. She's really good with guns and hand-to-hand combat. She's friendly, cheerful, and has a great sense of humor. She's also sensitive. Beyond that, it seems she'll do anything possible to save the people she loves, as shown at the end of Half-Life Alyx. Gordon might have been the main character of Half-Life 2, but he's truly just a player insert. The starring role in my eyes was Alex. The Dread? In Half-Life 2, Alex is a very obvious and clumsily placed love interest for Gordon. But since he never has dialogue with her or gives her a reason outside of displaying impressive skills with a crowbar, smashing crates, or killing head crabs, she feels like she's just written for teenage boys that wish they had a supportive girlfriend that likes everything they do, even if they just inherently aren't that interesting. There's really no development for her feelings towards you. You're just the messiah who shows up doing hero things and she just likes you because. This kind of goes for every character in the game though, so I can't really hold that too much against her. Also, she had a habit of getting in your way when you're playing the game. I know it's really nitpicky, but we're at the top here, so every little thing counts.
Daddy's coming home real soon, honey.
Ranking in at number 9, Barrett Wallace from the Final Fantasy VII saga. This guy is one of my favorite video game characters of all time. For me to put him in 9th should say something about the integrity of this list. He also wouldn't necessarily be this high, but Bentley's portrayal of him in 7 Remake added some incredible depth and gravitas. Before this, I kind of didn't view him as much more than an insert for Mr. T, vulgar and an angry eco-terrorist. But the raw emotion that's been put into this guy since 7 Remake.
Marlene! Marlene! Biggs! Wedge! Jesse! God damn it! God damn you! God damn you all!
We did this.
No, you can't think like that. Whatever came before it was Shinra that pulled the trigger today. Hold on to this anger, okay?
Bentley not getting a nomination or an award for his performance as Barrett Wallace is an absolute fucking sham. In my humble opinion, Barrett carried 7 Remake on his broad, muscular back. He had the widest range of emotions, showing worry, grief, anger, happiness, mistrust, and more. And he's a good dad. He's fucking amazing. The Dread, the only reason he's not higher on this list is that he's not the main character of his story. There's been 6 pieces of storied media in the Final Fantasy VII timeline, and he's only really present in 3 of them so far. His story is the most fleshed out in the original 7, but his personality is better showcased in 7 Remake. Also, the angry black man with a gun thing is so prevalent that it's attached to his arm. But I mean, how can I get mad at that? He's so amazing.
The world is right for their arms.
Devil's going in your house, bitch! You hear that shit? Your ass is gonna be crying to your skink ass queen! Oh, mommy, don't let the bad man hurt us! Fuck you! We're gonna whoop your mama's ass! Whoa!
Ranking in at number 8, Augustus Cole. Who doesn't like this guy? He's highly energetic, enthusiastic, and cunning. Cole's gung-ho attitude has gotten him far in everything he does. He's got childlike humor that lifts everybody's spirits, while every night he writes to his deceased mother, telling her all the things he didn't tell her while she was alive. He was a thrashball athlete, which actually makes sense as to why he's so different from Marcus and the others. He's a sports star that volunteered to save his world after the murder of his parents. He didn't start out as a hardened soldier. He's also grown quite a bit over the progress of 6 games, where he had appearances of varying degrees of relevance. While he's not the main character of Gears, I believe in my heart that Gears would be soulless and dead if this guy wasn't in the mix. The Dread, the class clown bit that nearly gets him and his comrades killed several times throughout the series, gets a little bit obnoxious and old. He's also several black stereotypes rolled into one giant meathead caricature, but I mean, it's fun. Additionally, while he's made appearances in several games, he's not the main character, hurting his score a little bit. He's one of the best supporting characters because, like I said, he's the best part of these games. The cumulative score that we gave them goes a little bit higher if they're the main character in their story. Ranking in at number 7, Colt Vaughn from Deathloop, the Solace. Colt is a very unique character, and he definitely earns his spot on this list. Not only is he the game's protagonist on a brand new IP, but he's got a few personality traits that are relatively unique for black video game characters. especially in men. He's unfortunate though, being trapped in an experiment gone wrong that has him in a time loop for years and institutionalized. His circumstance has certainly messed with his psychological status, as he's perceived as borderline insane from his time spent in the loops. Understandable, being forced to relive the same day and kill over and over again. That'll have an effect on you. He's got a great design, and he's bisexual. That's something you don't see a lot of in games with black men. I honestly can't think of another one. Colt also has a very unique relationship with the game's antagonist, but since the game is rather new, I'll avoid spoiling that. Honestly, we need more characters like Colt written into games like this. He has very few stereotypes, and the game gracefully touches on subjects with him that are normally considered taboo, like mental health and bisexuality. The problem with Colt isn't exactly his own. Many of the other characters on this list are part of larger, longer narratives that have the lore of their world play out in front of you. In Deathloop, you're thrown into a situation, piece together Colt's story as you go, which is great, but by the game's end, you're still left with a lot of questions unanswered, which left a lot of people feeling unsatisfied. I too am in the camp that a story is only as good as its ending. Still though, Colt is a great character, and I truly hope that there's more games like this featuring black protagonists.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Ranking in at number 6, CJ from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, the Solace. CJ is actually hype as hell. Not only was one of, if not the, first original black character to be the main protagonist of a AAA game, but his story was one of relative nobility considering the source material. He's introduced under tragic circumstances, and this sets the tone for the rest of the game. Over the course of his game, he goes from rags to riches and experiences huge betrayals and even more heartbreak before he gets there. His primary goal was to keep drugs from overrunning his neighborhood, which was opposed to the rival gang's main motive of selling as much of them as possible. Not only is CJ a great character, but he and his story are a highly stylized picture of the pressing social issues plaguing the media in the 90s, even starring characters that greatly resemble famous rappers from back then. CJ is one of the first characters that comes to mind when you start talking about the greatest black characters of all time. The Dread? As good as he is, there's a sense of hypocrisy when you kill people as much as he does, which is a lot. And you want to talk stereotypes? This guy is almost all of them. It does get excused since he's stylized for storytelling, but still, it's pretty bad. He paints a picture of very real events that were happening in California in the 90s. That being said, I don't hold it against him or Rockstar. The game wouldn't make any sense if he wasn't the way he was. But on our score sheet, this tanked his representation score quite a bit. Black folks are more than the stereotypes you see on TV.
Taught us kids to turn the other cheek, not fight back. Problem is that don't work. Not in the real world.
Ranking in at number 5, Lincoln Clay from Mafia 3, The Solace. Lincoln is by far the most brutal and badass on this list. It's not close. His story is one about finding revenge and finding his place in the world. He was literally shot in the head by a man he trusts and left for dead in a burning building. The warpath he goes on and the plot that unfolds afterwards is bloody and destructive. My favorite part about him is how they talk about his exploits in the game through a true crime TV documentary, making him into a legend of sorts. It's a super creative way to tell his story. Lincoln, recently ex-military, is a calm, collected, yet vicious monster. He's the only character in this list that would actually scare me in real life. The Dread, he loses a lot of points in representation. His score was damn near a 0. It's entirely for being such a hyper-violent monster. Also, he lacks the emotional range for me to be able to say he's the greatest character ever made. He's angry and then more angry, with some jovial bits in between. This might sound strange to say, but in my eyes, the story around him is better crafted than he is. He's a kind of boring dude doing crazy Green Beret stuff. The gameplay doesn't help either, since in between the cutscenes, he's just a killing machine. Still, he's one of my absolute favorites on this list, for the sheer brutality alone, although the supporting cast and the world building kinda helps. Lincoln Clay is easily top 5.
You are the only hope we have. You're special. Okay, you obviously don't know me.
Ranking in at number 4, Frey Holland from Forspoken, The Solace. Frey is probably the most overhated character I've ever seen in a video game, but it doesn't surprise me. Frey is more of a character in a story than a blank slate for you to step into. Also, Frey is fun to control. Probably the most fun of all the characters on this list. Seriously, this is her biggest strength. Her parkour and magic feels fluid and fast, and it lets you travel Athia's needlessly large map with ease. She's got attitude, a lot of character, she's confident, and they made her a leading woman without over-sexualizing her. I know isekai is a relatively common trope in JRPGs, but not with a character quite like this. Frey and Forspoken is kind of not for everybody. The most common complaint I see about Frey is that she's unlikable and selfish. Yes, that's the point. The game sets it up from the beginning that she's a thief. Newsflash, thieves are unlikable and selfish, especially when self-preservation has been their primary concern their entire life. It actually wouldn't make sense if she were altruistic. I don't know about y'all, but I've never met a jailbird thief who isn't selfish and unlikable. Shit, we wouldn't even let them in our house if we knew they stole shit. Family included, especially family. See, I know Frey. I'm related to Frey. Shit, I've been Frey. So when she's snatched into an apocalyptic world with the people she doesn't know and things actively trying to kill her every 5 minutes, it also makes sense that she'd want to go home, even if there's really nothing to go back to. I'll be making a full character analysis on her in the future. Suffice it to say, she's actually a lot better than people give her credit for. Aside from some cringe, I enjoyed her quite a bit as a character. She has a full score in screen time, she has an amazing character design, she actually does have good development, and her representation for black folks is actually not bad. Sure, she does have some stereotypes of, being a career felon. Throughout her entire playthrough, she actually only kills 2 sentient people. And even then, she still felt guilty in doing it, like most people would. Frey's a good character in a kind of messy game. The Dread, as much as I am a fan of Frey and Ella Balinska, she's certainly not perfect. The writing team left some serious cringe behind in that game. The problem is the bulk of the cringe is right at the beginning when they're establishing the character for the player, which makes it a lot harder to connect with her. Also, like I said, the girl loses a little bit of points and representation since they decided to write her as a felon. The girl goes to court no less than 3 times during the game in 2 different worlds. Lastly, due to the design of the game, all of the character interaction is isolated to town, and there's only a few characters for her to bounce off of, and only one of them she likes. So it just feels like a lot of negativity is pouring out of her. This is an assessment of the character, not necessarily the game that she is in, but the game does play a factor. Like it or not, she's actually one of the best black video game characters of all time. We need more black characters that are stripped of the usual stereotypes and are thrown into the front of AAA titles like this. But maybe let's do it with a better writing team. Some might say that some of the cringe dialogue is about on par with bad superhero movies, and they would be right. But the way my wife put it to me when we were level setting on this character is that writing in games must be better than writing in movies because it's a far more immersive experience, which leaves you to step into the character's shoes a lot more. It's really hard to disagree with that. Ranking in at number 3, Lee Everett from Telltale's The Walking Dead series, The Solace. Lee is the protagonist of the first season of The Walking Dead, and he's one of the best black video game characters of all time. Lee is incredibly likable and malleable because he's based on player choice, making him helpful to others and idealistic, or selfish and cynical. Shining through either path, however, is his intelligence and how much he cares for Clementine, his counterpart in the game. Lee's care for her is not only his redemption arc for how his own family was broken apart, but she serves as a moral compass for him in her reaction to his decisions. Basically, no matter what you do, he's gonna be a caring figure for Clem. And despite character choice determining how good or bad he is, he retains enough of his own flavor to keep him from being just an empty robot, and that's kind of what makes him special. He's a former professor who's given a life sentence in prison for killing a state senator that was sleeping with his wife. Not the best look, but I mean, I get it. Lee's arc ends in a powerful and memorable way at the end of the season, but his time spent throughout the game has an impact that resonates far beyond the events of that season. Lee isn't just a good black character, he's a good character, period. Blackness be damned. Now the Dread. As much as we like Lee in this series, we look at the good and the bad, the Solace and the Dread. And Lee is not without Dread. He is far from perfect. Lee is a good character, but spoiler alert, he dies at the end of the first season, hurting his screen time ratio quite a bit, and he actually hurts the games that come after. Maybe it's just my opinion, but I think they pulled him out just a little too quick. Also, due to the nature of the design of the game, there's very little control of the character, and when you do control him, well, it kinda sucks. As far as representation goes, I mean, come on, they just had to make him a murderer that was locked up in the back of a squad car, huh? Lastly, his aesthetic is good, but it's nothing to write home about. He's just a dude. Lee is very much a redemption arc, but even the best of our representation still had to be a cliche. Still though, he's an impressive character and we need more characters like him at the front of games.
Nobody look like us. Oh man, welcome to Silicon Valley. Hey, what do you call a black man surrounded by thousands of white people? What? Mr. President?
Hey man, they see two of us together, they gonna think we plotting.
We are plotting.
Ranking in at number 2, Marcus from Watch Dogs 2, the Solace. Marcus is an amazing character. And while we're on that, Watch Dogs 2 is a pretty damn good game, and it's on the PlayStation Premium Pass, so if you have it, it's worth trying out. Gonna be honest. Seriously though, there's a lot to like about this guy. First of all, he's a fucking nerd. A realistic nerd too, not Urkel with the suspenders and shit. It's fairly obvious that I can very much relate to this guy. He's confident, highly skilled, a leader, calm, collected. He has an emotional range and depth, and he's a good representative for us too, mostly. I mean, yes, he is technically a criminal, but due to the design of the game, you can actually go through the entire playthrough without killing a single person if you were so inclined, as he has a lot of non-lethal techniques to take down his foes. I'll be honest though, I got too impatient too often and I just started shooting people in the face. But the point is, you don't have to, since, you know, violence isn't the goal. Marcus's aesthetic is a little bit on the plain side, but they let you dress him up in some pretty silly or cool stuff, so that handles that. The team that designed him made sure that they consulted with black folks and got feedback to keep him from being the normal cliches that we get in video games. Marcus is one of the best black video game characters of all time. Whenever the next Watch Dogs game comes out, I don't want a new character, just give us Marcus back. The Dread, as much as we love Marcus, he's not perfect either. Like I said, I mean, technically he is a criminal. But beyond that, Marcus is either a little overskilled or underdeveloped, one of the two, as it's hard to suspend belief that this dude is taking out droves of FBI agents with basically a stun gun all by himself. We also do not get enough of his backstory given to us to truly understand his passion for the fight. Yes, he was profiled, but I mean, that's just being a black dude in America these days. It really wouldn't have taken a whole lot to drill that in. I think it was probably a choice to get the game started and keep the game focused on gameplay rather than the character, but since he's such a compelling character, it's a disservice to not flesh him out a little bit more for the players. Still, these are very small criticisms to me. He's great, one of the best. But there's one character that edges him out just a little bit. I fought for him to be number 1, but my wife was right. The other character is slightly better. This is the honorable mentions list. Some of these characters I just missed or I didn't personally connect with them, but that doesn't mean that they're bad characters. I just had a better connection with some of the others. Honestly, a lot of these characters could replace anybody on this list. Starting with Billy Lurk from the Dishonored series. I literally didn't know about her. I looked into her a lot. She's amazing. A badass bisexual assassin with cybernetic parts that has been antagonist, supporting character, and main protagonist. I would say I don't know how I missed her, but when I looked into the game's sales, well, it kind of became clear. She could easily replace anybody in this top 10 list, really. How does Arcane continually write these really good black characters? I'm actually asking, I don't know anything about the studio. Then there's Aveline from Assassin's Creed. She's almost as good of a character as Adewale, really. It's really just unfortunate that the majority of her time is trapped in the terrible game that's Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation. She does have a much better time in her DLC story for Black Flag though. She could easily fit anywhere into this list. We also have Grace Walker from Wolfenstein 2. Sure, she's a bit rough around the edges, but she's a tough revolutionary fighting for freedom. That's kind of what you would expect. And as is the normal, the internet hated her for being too tough and unlikable, but they were quick to overlook her trauma and the literal Nazis that she was fighting against. It's too often that the gaming world expects women, especially black women, to fit in this tiny little box, and when they don't fit, they're terrible characters. We know what your problem is. Then of course, there's Franklin from Grand Theft Auto 5. Look, I personally didn't like Franklin I can't connect with that guy, but that doesn't mean that he's not good. Honestly, him and CJ could be interchangeable. Franklin is one of the 3 main protagonists in one of the most popular games on the planet. He has a story about trying to make something bigger and better out of himself, and I can respect that. Of course he's a good character. I'm way more attached to CJ because I'm old, and CJ was making a statement. CJ might have been first, but Franklin is the new generation's CJ. Then there's Nadine Ross from Uncharted. She's a mercenary turned treasure hunter. She ran her own paramilitary group, and she's a badass with a great design, not to mention the masterful performance in portraying her from Laura Bailey. She was an antagonist, but then returns as a deuteragonist in her DLC appearance. She could have been here too. And of course, James Heller. I really don't like this guy. I also didn't like Prototype 2, but I have to give some respect to his inclusion as a character. He's the protagonist of a reasonably high budget title and has a bunch of badass powers, and he at least had a backstory. I just thought Alex Mercer, the protagonist of the first game, was far more interesting. Still, he could just as much make the list. Honestly, seeing Tyon, I never even really considered him as black. I just thought he was one of those ambiguous dark-skinned anime characters, but then I saw the voice actor and I'm like, oh yeah, this dude is actually black. He's a pretty good supporting character and he has a bit of a cheeky personality, and I kind of like that. You don't get a lot of black characters in anime style games, so I'm very appreciative of his inclusion in Xenoblade Chronicles 3. He could have easily fit somewhere in this list too. I mentioned it in the Lincoln Clay video, but Father James from Mafia 3 could have easily fit into this list, at least in the back half somewhere. He's so incredibly good. He saved Lincoln's life and also effectively ends it, in one ending anyway. His storytelling TV documentary parts in Mafia 3 are so well performed that it actually feels like you're watching a true crime documentary, and it's entirely thanks to him. Well, him and Gordon Green. Then of course there's Roland, commander of the Crimson Raiders in Borderlands. He's a badass and playable, but very much the normal soldier type. He is getting portrayed by Kevin Hart in a film adaptation though, so that's a plus. In any case, he gets an honorable mention as well, because Borderlands is just so damn good. I would have no problem putting him somewhere in the lower half of the list. And one character I'm really shocked that I missed was Ryan from The Quarry. Justice Smith did such a good job portraying this character. I honestly don't know how I forgot him. I watched the entire gameplay through done by 2 different YouTubers, and he's the only character I can actually remember from the entire game. And he's a good bisexual rep too. Then there's Irish from Battlefield 2042 by the late and talented Michael Williams, and honestly man, that guy is an actor on a next level caliber. He does a great portrayal of every character he ever did. He's actually called Irish because he's unlucky as possible, and he actually also has a crippling fear of heights. Throughout the campaign, he's actually put in several situations where he has to confront that fear. Irish is a great character too, and he deserved to be in the list just as much as many of the other characters.
Lee, I miss you so much. I wish you were really here.
I miss you too, Clementine. But we'll have to make do with pretending.
Ranking in at number 1, Clementine from Telltale's The Walking Dead series, The Solace. Clementine is the best black video game character of all time. It is close, but she is the best. Clementine is a prominent character in Telltale's The Walking Dead in seasons 1 through 4 and beyond. And she goes from living with her parents in a suburb of Atlanta to join a group of survivors in an effort to find safety in the midst of a zombie apocalypse. But what makes her special is her sheer runtime and development. She's in all 4 seasons of the game and beyond. She's the most prominent character in the series too. Her most widely known role is that of deuteragonist in season 1, serving as Lee's moral compass, but she goes well beyond that. Clementine is incredibly smart, sweet, and maybe a little bit naive in the beginning, but she soon develops into a strong, brave character and always stays true to her kind nature, making sacrifices along her journey for the good of others.
Holy shit.
What the? How the hell did it get in here?
I'm still not bitten. I never was.
Clementine is one of the best to represent us, and I love her perspective because she basically grew up in that world, taking the player along for the ride. We love Clem in this house. The Dread? I mean, there isn't a whole lot wrong with her, so we're about to get real nitpicky in a second. Clementine's appearance in the strongest of the games was really just a moral compass for Lee, and that can make her feel a little bit hollow. In subsequent games, she gets a ton of development, but control segments of her are still limited and not great. But like I said, there's not a ton wrong with her. I would just love to see this kind of character writing in depth in a more action-oriented game, something that's a little less like a visual novel, as those games really aren't for everybody. As good as Clementine is, and make no mistake, I think she is the best of us, she shouldn't be. Clementine really should be middle of the road. Fact is, we need more good representation. I really hope you guys enjoyed this series. If it's not already up, me, my wife, and our Twitch community will be putting together a list of the best female video game characters of all time. But there's a couple of caveats there. They have to pass the Bechdel test, and just like the best black video game characters list, there's going to be a weighted score based on several criteria. Of course, this is largely based on our opinion because, well, there are thousands of good female video game characters out there. I'm really looking forward to this. And you can actually be a part of how these lists are shaped by joining our discussions over on the Purple app. Thank you guys for supporting this series. We'll see you soon, and welcome everybody to the Turtle Kingdom community. You've made it home.